So I'd like to introduce now Carlo Ratti. He's also from MIT, the Sensible Cities Group. And Carlo, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Well, great pleasure to be back here in Spain, in Valencia. What I wanted to do is, we saw the end of Kent's presentation about designing cities for people, not for machines. And that's absolutely right. What we should really do is always design things for people. Machine, however, today allows new possibilities to actually shape the interaction between people and the built space. And I wanted just in a few slides to give you a sense of how that is changing, or at least how we think that it's changing. Now, if you look at this slide, this is something people used to be really fascinated in the 1990s. They were thinking about a world that would become increasingly virtual. And so much so that some people, like Gilder, an American writer, they said, cities would disappear. Cities are leftover baggage from the industrial era. Well, this tells you how difficult and how tough it is to predict the future, because no prediction could have been more wrong. We now know that actually cities have been thriving. There's a picture from Tianjin. China itself, this century, will probably build more urban fabric than all of humanity ever built. And we also know that half of the world population now lives in cities, and that number might swell to 5 billion by 2030. So what has happened is actually the digital, the connectivity, or this ability to actually be connected at a distance didn't kill physical space. But actually digital and physical are kind of recombining, are creating a hybrid dimension between the world of bits and atoms, with us in the middle. And that is not what many people really call smart cities. We like to call it more like sensible cities, really because that puts people in the middle. And that is what I want to share with you this morning. Now, if you look at that cycle, the bits and atoms, that's also a cycle that deals with sensing and actuating, how we can collect a lot of information from our cities and how we can respond to that information. And sensing and actuating is really what every dynamic system does and what every living system does. When we see each other, when we meet each other, we sense each other, we collect information from each other, and then we respond to that information. So I classified the project first. I want to share with you a few projects about sensing, how today we can collect information from our cities to an unprecedented extent, and then actuating how we can respond to that. The first project is part of a number of projects we've been doing over the years. We are still working on them, but started with this computer. Now, if you look at that computer today, you know everything about it. Every chip in it, you know where it was produced, how it moved on the planet, how it became that machine. However, a few years from now, you stop using this computer, and sometimes this is what happens to it. A lot of electronics from the United States get shipped illegally to Asia, from Europe to Africa. So the idea, what if you could put a little tag on trash, and then start following trash? A little bit like when you go to hospital, they put a tracer in your blood, and they follow it through your body. How can we do the same thing, actually, for a whole city? So this is a little tag. We couldn't find anything off the shelf, so we had to develop it together with Qualcomm. And then we started tagging trash. If we can have the sound. There should be some sound. So we put the tag on many different pieces of trash, electronics and other things. And after tagging all of them, we started following them. So this was the first deployment, 3,000 pieces with 500 volunteers. You see the day of deployment in the city of Seattle in the United States. Then after a few days, some of the main landfills next to Seattle. But then a big surprise, actually, how far things started to travel. Sometimes in a crazy way. Look at the trace that went on the way to Chicago and then down to Baja California. And then still moving after 1 month or 2 months. We thought that was the music we needed. So when you have all this data, what can you do with it? Well, the first thing you can do is actually take all this data, you're an engineer, you analyze it, and you can try to make the system more efficient. So if you look at that, think about how much energy we could actually save in order to optimize all of these traces of pieces of trash moving for thousands and thousands of kilometers. Now, the second thing you can do is actually open this data to people. In this case, we were sharing the data with all the volunteers, and that produces something quite interesting. So if you take all the giant amount of data we produce today, well, that's incredible. If you take all the data produced by humanity from the beginning till 2003, that's what we do today every 24 to 48 hours. So this incredible amount of data, if opened up in real time with people, it can promote behavioral change. So one of the interesting things was at the end of the project, somebody came to us and said, I used to drink water in plastic bottles every day and then throw them away and forget about them. And now, actually, I saw where they go. They go a few miles from home to a landfill. They will stay there forever, so I stopped drinking water in plastic bottles. So how all of these can promote really feedback loops that are based on people and sharing information with people. The third thing we discovered was actually unexpected. It happened more recently, and it happened when a burglar came to our lab at MIT and stole a lot of things, including some of the tags that tell you where they go. And here is what happened. All right. So, that's a way to see how we can sense things with sensors by deploying sensors, but we actually use a lot of existing information to sense what is going on in the city. In this case, for instance, what you see here is actually the city of Lisbon. And it is Lisbon seen through billion and billion of data information from the taxi network. There's a project by Pedro Cruz, who was in our lab, now he's back in Portugal. Or, we can use data from cell phone networks. What you see here is actually the city of Rome during the final of the Soccer World Cup, one of the first projects we did in 2006. So you see, that was the first time ever that the city was monitored using data from millions of people's cell phone, anonymized and aggregate. You see people moving in the city before the match, going here and there. The match begins, silence. That's a Soccer World Cup. France scores, Italy score, halftime, people make a quick call. And then second half, some of you may recall Zidane's headbutt in a moment. And then Zidane gets the red card, and then Italy wins. And then, that night, as some of you might recall, the night everybody went to celebrate in the city center, so you see a big peak there. The following day, actually, everybody went to meet the winning team and the prime minister, again in the center. And by the end of the day, actually, everybody was coming here down there to have a big party at a place called Circo Massimo, where since Roman times, actually, people go and celebrate, and you see a big peak at the end of the day. So, all of this about how today we can really sense the city, collect information from the city, understand what is going on to an unprecedented extent. But then what about actuating? How do we transform the city? How can we actually use this information in order to design better cities or make them work in a better way? Well, sometimes you take the data, like the taxi data we saw before for Lisbon, and you can analyze it. So what you see here is actually the city of New York. You see all the taxi, drop-offs, and pickups. And then you can ask yourself, what if people could share a taxi? Now, you couldn't do it before because it was difficult to know who else was going to the same destination or a similar destination, but you can do it very easily today with all the information we have in real time in our pockets. The idea is very simple. imagine you could do that, and then you can ask yourself mathematically, what would be the minimum number of taxis you could have actually in New York City in order to take everybody to destination at the same time, give or take a couple of minutes? If people were able to share the infrastructure more. And what you find, which is quite surprising, is that it could actually cut the number of taxis of New York City by over 40% and actually provide the same service. So that tells you how today we can use this information. Again, Ken talked about a sharing economy, about to use much better the infrastructure we have. What you saw here is we know a lot of information, a lot of data about the city, but we also know a lot about what happens inside the car. This is a project, for instance, we've been working on with Audi, Volkswagen, trying to use data inside the car to better understand the driver.
I've ever been on. Nevertheless, I think we have a lot of great content to measure road frustration, because I'm certainly frustrated at this point. And we're off. Jesus. Oh God. Okay.
Stop the car.
So we were just sideswiped, and right now my stress level should be through the roof. We got the information, we'll have to process the data and see where it's really at.
Jesus.
So we have a lot of data from the city, a lot of data from the car. As Ken was saying before, now from the intersection of these two worlds, and something quite extraordinary is going to happen, which is self-driving cars, where actually the interesting thing is not really the car that drives itself, but it's the fact that you can share it. It becomes a part of an infrastructure where people, the car can give you a lift to work in the morning, and then can give a lift to somebody else in your family, or to anybody else. And then everything changes in the way we conceive mobility in the city. Again, we can have a system where things magically mix without bumping into each other. And so self-driving and autonomy is going to change many fields. Car is one of them. In this other project we did a few weeks ago, we did actually on the MIT campus. The MIT campus is a bit messy. Some of you have come to it, have been on it. There's plenty of buildings. Every building has a number. A lot of people actually get almost lost on campus. So a few weeks ago was the beginning of the semester, the beginning of term. And so we decided to do a little project about autonomy in order to help people on campus to orient themselves, and in particular for Harvard students.
Welcome to MIT. Where would you like to go? Follow me, please. The Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Lab is the largest research lab at MIT To your right, the Media Lab. To your left, the Data Center. Follow me, please. Approaching your destination. You have arrived. Welcome to Sensible City Lab. Goodbye.
So, about technology becoming more embedded in the city, in this case, about how it can help us guide us. And I wanted to finish with one final project that actually connects to what Kent was explaining before, which actually deals with, again, technology going back to us, to humans. And this started with a project that we did in the city of Copenhagen. The mayor came to us a few years ago saying, how can we use all of this ubiquitous connectivity and this kind of ubiquitous computing for traffic? Now, we went to Copenhagen with a bunch of students, and you can imagine their surprise actually in looking at the city where traffic meant not that much cars, but traffic meant a lot of bicycles. Copenhagen is the city where 30 to 50% of all trips every day actually happen by bicycles. So we started working on bicycles, and we came up with the following project.
Welcome to the Copenhagen Wheel, the wheel that turns your ordinary bike into a smart electric hybrid. Quickly and easily, with no additional batteries or wires. The Copenhagen Wheel allows you to capture the energy dissipated while braking and cycling, and save it for when you need a bit of a boost. Controlled through your smartphone, the Copenhagen Wheel becomes a natural extension of your everyday life. The Copenhagen Wheel is your personal trainer, sensing your effort level and providing you with real-time feedback about your fitness and exercise goals. The Copenhagen Wheel also enhances your experience of the city. It connects you with things a cyclist wants to know: upcoming traffic congestion, road conditions, and pollution levels. Choose to keep your data, or share it with your friends and other cyclists through social networks like Facebook. As you ride, you also collect green miles. It's similar to a frequent flyer program, but good for the environment. Elegant, responsive, smart. A new mode of transport for a rapidly changing world. So turn on your life and turn on the city. The Copenhagen Wheel.
And here was the first prototype, actually, with the mayor of Copenhagen. Here was the mayor of Toronto and the mayor of Copenhagen trying it for the first time.
I said, run away, run away, run away. Oh, I felt it. Excellent. This bike is fantastic. It's incredible. It takes no effort. You see my bike? You start pedaling and the motor takes over. And then it will tell you the air quality, temperature. Incredible first. It's amazing to see an idea come to fruition like that.
And MIT is an incredible place because you can actually develop a lot of things, and then a lot of these things will then be, MIT, we own the IP, but you can then license back the IP from MIT and do startups. So actually, some of you might have seen that this was news a few weeks ago, that the IP from the wheel was licensed by a startup called Super Pedestrian that's actually going to build it. And there's many cases like that. I think this is also what will be discussed today, what has been discussed in the other room here, about how all of this can create new different type of venture, with a group of people, a group of kids in a garage doing it, and we got quite this is one case with superpedestrian. Another one was the latest acquisition by Facebook, Start, originated with the lab. And we heard about some before. So I think it's a very exciting opportunity by looking at this conversion between bits and atoms in order to see how they can change the way we can understand cities, we can design them, and ultimately live in them. Thank you.